Hey, welcome to the video where I show you how to put together the H-Lap's 150 miniature crossbow. So this I actually put together as sort of a thank you for having 150 subscribers, which is why I engraved it. Unfortunately, it started out being for 100 subscribers. I got to the engraving around 150 and now I'm at 200. So it looks like I'm a little behind, but thank you very much. It really means a lot. So yeah, this is the crossbow I designed and sort of put together and showcased in my silly little video. And I'm going to show you how to put it together. I actually put the plans up on Patreon. I actually made another miniature crossbow a while ago, and some guy pulled the CAD files off of GrabCAD, which I have an account with, and he made like a better one. And I guess he made it for his kid or something, but yeah, it was pretty cool. Anyways, so I guess there's nothing left but to get started. So basically you've got two housing halves, so this kind of clamshells together. You've got this part called a riser, which is your sort of typical 6-operation CNC machining porn. I got some arms here cut out of Delrin. I was planning on doing carbon fiber, but when you shoot carbon fiber with water jet, apparently it explodes. It's called delamination. You get high pressure in the middle of it, and it starts sort of peeling away. The composite kind of opens up. So I haven't given up on carbon fiber yet. I'm just going to have to pre-drill some holes, I guess. I've got some brass grips here. They're nice and engraved on the Tormach PCNC 1100. I used the drag engraver, and I actually did this scroll work in SolidWorks. So I may do like a video on how to do that, because it looks good for the amount of effort that goes into it. This is a spring retainer, so this actually holds the bolt in place before you fire it. And I've got the trigger here. So I mentioned in a previous video that I went full click spring. This was the part I was going full click spring on. It didn't work out as well as it would have for click spring, I don't think, but I'm pretty happy with it. It's nice blue color, and it's got sort of a gradient to it, I guess. And then there's an accompanying part, which is a rolling nut. This is a part of crossbow mechanisms that go back to the Middle Ages, apparently. So yeah, the first step to putting this together is actually putting an M2 Phillips head into this interesting hole here. I say it's interesting because it's actually a tapped hole that I've countersunk. And the reason I did that is because I was fresh out of 2mm pins. So what this is a kind of a stand-in for a pin. See, I thread it through like this. So that goes all the way through like that. See, it sticks out in here. This is actually where the trigger return spring goes. So this is this has a teeny tiny bearing in it, and it's got a piece of, I think it's 3mm shafting. One thing that's important to know about metric dowel pins, at least, and I knew it, but I forgot it, I guess, is metric dowel pins are actually all oversized. So you can't drill and ream a hole because it'll just never fit. So this is actually a piece of 3mm shafting that I had from a while back. I probably rescued it from a printer or a hard drive or something. And so I just cut that down, and it's a perfect fit. I also found this random spring. As usual, none of my springs fit, but I found one in a bin I had from a while ago, I guess, and it seems to fit okay. I actually drilled and tapped a hole in the back of the trigger here, and that is to hold I think it's an M2.5 screw, and that basically just lets me adjust the trigger feel a little bit. I could have sort of put a notch in this probably and looped the spring over, but this is actually a lot easier. It's also a lot lower risk, because if I found for whatever reason the spring didn't fit or something, I could modify the fastener rather than modifying the whole trigger. So the trigger actually just goes in this half. Nice sort of slip fit with the housing. And this end of the spring loops over that fastener I put in. If I can do it. There. So that's how that works. If you do the Patreon thing and download the plans, I actually did say that an elastic band works here too. It actually kind of works better because it's a lot quieter. If you pull the trigger hard when this is put together, you can kind of hear this ringing. It's not a big deal. It's just, I guess it could be annoying, or if you're sneaking up on mice like I was in the video, then might give your position away. So this is the rolling nut. Basically, the string gets held by this component here. The trigger rests against here. When you pull the trigger, it slips off of that, and this is free to roll. Nothing moves this other than the tension from the string. I actually added to it, I put a little stopper notch here, which you'll see in action. So it doesn't rotate all the way around. So this rolling nut actually goes just right here. Again, not a dowel pin, it's a piece of shaft. If you download the Patreon plans and try to make it, it may very well be worth just switching the bearings and the holes to be Imperial, because Imperial dowel pins do fit on nominal size. So you can kind of see how the mechanism is going to work here. If I pull forward on this and pull the trigger, it slips, rotates like that. There's a stopper pin in here, which I mentioned before. The idea here is that it won't let it rotate all the way and get lost and stuff. One sort of minor design oversight I had was this back part of the rolling nut is a lot heavier than the front part. So if you pull the trigger without a stopper pin, this moves down and you sort of end up with the rolling nut in like a weird vertical position. But yeah, I mean, the stopper pin fixes all that. So after you've fired with the stopper pin there, as you pull the string back, it catches and it recocks the whole thing. So it works really well. I've never had a problem with this mechanism. I've tried a few other mechanisms with limited success. But yeah, this one's great. So anyways, those are all the internal parts. So what you can do next is just put the other side on. So that, you know, locates off of the many dowel pins I have in here. You should give it a good squeeze and make sure everything's seated properly. Once you're sure everything's seated properly, it's flathead screws that go in and hold this guy in position, and they kind of locate it too, which is sort of a design no-no, but I mean, it's a Crossbow, right? It's not like it's a automotive panel stamping tool or something. So these will just tighten in like this. The next thing, I've got one more fastener that goes in here. It just sort of tightens up the grip area, I guess. Otherwise you might end up with a gap. Put it in. There you go. So this, someone on Instagram actually suggested that I was making an elastic band gun, and this would probably work pretty well as an elastic band gun. The front's a little sort of bulbous for that purpose, but what are you gonna do? So here's that trigger action again, so you can see as I pull back, say, a string, in this case an Allen key, it recocks. So I guess next what we're gonna do is put the fancy grips on. So there's a right hand and a left hand grip, and the only reason that they're not symmetrical is because the hole isn't in the center. If the hole were in the center, then you could just, yeah, you can make it symmetrical and you could flip it and stuff. I think that looks nice. That's the Tormach Dragon Graver there. I've got some footage of it actually. It does a pretty good job. It kicks up a bit of a burr though. You can sort of do a really tight clearance fly cutter cut to take the burr off. I just went over this really quickly with some really light sandpaper and it cleaned it right up. Other side here goes in just like this. I think that's nice. I think the brushed aluminum look with the brass looks really nice, and like, yeah, I mean the blue steel is pretty cool too. So now we're gonna put our super duper billet aluminum piece on. I'm just gonna. So this is actually pretty important. I didn't drill these holes until after I'd put it together. If you try to line the holes up beforehand, it's just way more likely you're gonna be off by a little bit, and you never know. Like if you're sanding it or something, you might screw up where the holes line up on the front, and then this guy won't fit, and You'll be angry at me for not designing it better. Anyways, I did these guys afterwards. There, so those guys are tight. Now, speaking of machining things after it's all put together, this groove on the top I did very last. And that's because I wanted it to line up perfectly here. I'm sure if you were really on the ball, you could do it separate operations and it would line up, but I just didn't want to take the chance, so I did it last. So this is the rear sight. This took all of like a minute to machine probably. It's just sort of a blade sight kind of thing. There's no front sight, so it's almost cosmetic, except it works a little bit. In my little parody video thing there, I shot like a cat toy off of the top of a piece of bread. And the idea behind that was I was gonna say something about like, oh, I use it to shoot my family's food. Then the arrow was supposed to hit the bread, like a joke. But then I nailed the mouse, so it was a pretty epic shot, and I decided to keep it. But yeah, I wasn't anticipating actually hitting the mouse. These are all just stainless button heads. I like button heads because they sort of look like more finished. I like Phillips button heads more for sort of a final finished look. I find anytime you get below like 2.5 millimeter maybe hex, it's just hit or miss if you round it out with the hex key or not. So below that size, I like to go for Allen keys, or for Phillips rather. So this is another piece of friggin' sheet metal. This one was actually pretty straightforward. It's actually just stainless steel shim stock I used, and you know, water jetted it out, and then I was actually able to bend this, and it didn't come back to haunt me. So there. So that's pretty springy. I'm not sure what the actual alloy is on shim stock. I think it's hardened though, so that'll that sort of explains the springiness. And second to last step is putting the arms on. Like I was saying, I was planning on doing these out of carbon fiber, but wasn't going well. Interesting fact, I read that you could actually laser cut carbon fiber, but I tried it today. It didn't go well. The first thing was it didn't cut very well at all. I'm assuming because lasers can't cut carbon, or at least the 60 watt laser we have can't. But the other weird thing was it actually emitted a super bright glow. So it was probably like the carbon filaments lighting up or something, but it was sort of an unpleasant experience all around. I'm going to try water jetting a bit later. Again. Alright, so now the last step is putting the string on. And just like sort of a real bow, it's just a matter of manually bending the limbs until you can loop it on. There you go. So this guy's actually pretty powerful. This is just Delrin arms. These are 0.125 inch Delrin arms, 1/8 of an inch, and they've really got some punch to them. I'm gonna put something in here because you're never actually supposed to dry fire bows. Yeah, and then you just boom. So overall, yeah, I'm really happy with this design. I think the engraving came out well. The drawings were a bit of a pain in the ass. I don't like doing drawings. I just figured that like if you wanted to do this with sort of woodworking techniques instead of CNC machining, you totally could. All you'd need is like sort of a mini router and like a fret saw. And you could also 3D print this fairly easily. I just wanted to make sure that the important stuff was called out if someone went to make this. So yeah, it's listed on my Patreon if you want to take a crack at it. If you don't want to donate to my Patreon, my old crossbow that I made is actually on GrabCAD still, and it's free. It's not as good. It doesn't look as good. The trigger actually extends out the bottom a bit, so it's got this kind of weird protrusion when it fires. Hey, it's Future Greg here. While I was editing the video, I sort of thought I might as well just show off my old crossbow too. Yeah, it's the same basic rolling nut mechanism, except it's got the trigger sort of semi-external like that, and there's no stop pin or anything, so when you fire it, it'll sort of end up like here maybe, and then you gotta kind of roll it until the nut finds its home position again. But it certainly still works. I've got some sort of wood furniture on it. I contoured this in the milling machine, and then I just sort of carved it to fit my hand and oddly shaped thumb. So just a size comparison, they're, I guess, roughly the same size. This guy's got longer arms, and the arms come out straight. It also doesn't shoot quite as well because it's got thinner arms. And I'm not sure what I was doing with the fasteners going through the side like that, but The other unfortunate thing is that it doesn't come apart. So I can't show you the insides, unfortunately, but they're aluminum. This is back before I had access to the Tormac, and I did all this on my TAG. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again for subscribing. Really means a lot to me. Oh, and make sure you go over and look at my little commercial teaser trailer thing that I made yesterday. Cheers, guys.